Major sponsors for Ableton On Air include Washington County Mental Health, where hope and support come together. Media sponsors for Ableton On Air include Parkchester Times, Muslim Community Report, www.thisisthebronx.info, Associated Press Media Editors, New York Parrot Online Newspaper, U.S. Press Corps Domestic and International, Anchor FM, and Spotify. Partners for Ableton On Air include Yahad of New York and New England, where everyone belongs, the Orthodox Union, the Division for the Blind and Visually Impaired of Vermont, the Vermont Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, Central Vermont Habitat for Humanity, Montefiore Medical Center of the Bronx, Rose F. Kennedy Center of Bronx, New York, Albert Einstein College of Medicine of the Bronx. Ableton On Air has been seen in the following publications: Parkchester Times, www.thisisthebronx.com, New York Parrot Online Newspaper, Muslim Community Report, www.h.com, and the Montpelier Bridge. Ableton On Air is part of the following organizations: the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, Boston, New England chapter, and the Society of Professional Journalists. Coming up on this edition of Ableton On Air, we talk about the history of hearing aids and the importance of hearing aids. All that and much more when Ableton On Air start right now. Hello and welcome to this edition of Ableton On Air, the one and only program that focuses on the needs, concerns, and achievements of all people with abilities despite disabilities. I'm Lawrence Seiler. Arlene is not here today. On this particular topic today, we focus on the history of hearing aids and the importance of them. I would like to thank our partners and sponsors, the Global PAD Association, the Association for the Blind Vermont, the Division for the Blind Vermont, and many others, including Galil Foods, Galil Food Company of Brooklyn, New York. I would like to start with the history of hearing aids. Let's begin. This comes from Wikipedia.org, and so let's start here. The history of hearing aids. The first hearing aid was created in the 17th century. The movement towards the modern hearing aids began with the creation of the telephone by Alexander Graham Bell, and its first electric hearing aid was created in 1898. By the late 20th century, the digital hearing aid was distributed to the public commercially. Some of the first hearing aids were external hearing aids. External hearing aids direct sound in front of the ear and block all other noises. The apparatus would fit into or behind the ear. The invention of the carbon microphone and transmitters. Digital Signal Processing Chip, DSP, and the development of computer technology have helped transform the hearing aid to its present form. The ear trumpet, the use of ear trumpets for particular deaf people date back to the 17th century. By the late 18th century, the use was becoming increasingly common. Collapsible canonical ear trumpets were made by instrument makers on an on and off basis, specifically clients for specific clients. Well-known models of the period included the Townsend trumpet, made by deaf educator John Townsend, and the Reynolds trumpet, specifically built for painter Joshua Reynolds, and the Dabini trumpet. The first firm to begin commercial production of the ear trumpet and the hearing aid was established by Frederick C. Rain in London in 1800. As well as producing ear trumpets, Rain sold hearing fans and speaking tubes. These instruments help amplify sound while being portable. However, these devices were generally bulky and had to be physically supported from below. Later, smaller handheld ear trumpets were cones used as hearing aids. Rain was commissioned to design a special acoustic chair for the ailing King John VI of Portugal in 1819. The throne was designed with ornately carved arms looked like the open mouths of lions. These holes acted to the back of the throne via a speaking tube and to the king's ear. Finally, in the late 1800s, the acoustic horn, which was the tube that had two ends, a cone that captured sound, and was eventually made to fit in the ear. Towards the late 19th century, hidden hearing aids became increasingly popular. Rain pioneered the notable designs, including his acoustic headbands, where the hearing device was artfully concealed within the hair or headgear. Rain's Aurelius phones were headbands made of a variety of shapes that incorporated sound collectors near the ear that would amplify the acoustics. Hearing aids were hidden in couches, clothing, and accessories. This drive towards the increasingly invisibility of hearing aids was more about hiding an individual's disability from the public and about helping the individual cope with his or her problem. The first electronic hearing aid was constructed after the invention of the telephone and microphone. In the 1870s and 1800s, the technology within the telephone increased how acoustic signals were altered. Telephones were able to control the loudness, frequency, and distortion of sounds. These abilities were the creation of the hearing aid. The first electric hearing aid was called the Acouphone, Akouphone, was created by Miller Reese Hutchinson in 1898. It used a carbon transmitter so that the hearing aid could be portable. The carbon transmitter was used to amplify sound by taking a weak signal and using the electric current to make a strong signal. These electronic hearing aids could eventually be shrunk into purses and other accessories. One of the manufacturers of the electronic amplified hearing aid was the Siemens Company, Siemens, the Siemens Company, in 1913. Their hearing aids were bulky and not easily portable. They were about the size of a tall cigar box and had a speaker that would fit into the ear. The first vacuum tube hearing aid was patented by a naval engineer, Earl Hansen, in 1920. It was called the vacuum tube phone, VACTUPHONE, and used the telephone transmitter to turn speech into electrical signals. After the signal was converted, it was amplified and then moved to a receiver. The hearing aid weighed 7 pounds and made it light enough to be carried. Marconi in England and Western Electric began marketing the vacuum tube hearing aids in 1923. During the 1920s and 1930s, the vacuum tube hearing aid became more successful and began to decrease in size with better miniaturization techniques. The Acousticons, ACOUSTICONS, Model 56, was created in the mid-1920s and was one of the first portable hearing aid units, although it was quite heavy. The first wearable hearing aid and vacuum tube technology went on sale in England in 1936 and a later year in the United States. By the 1930s, hearing aids became so popular to the public. The Multitone of London patented the first hearing aid by using the automatic gain control. The same company introduced a wearable version in 1948. Military technological advances that occurred in World War II helped the development of hearing aids. One of the major advances in World War II enabled was the idea of miniaturization that could be seen by the Zenith pocket-sized miniature 75. Zenith is a TB company. The development of transistors by 1948 by Bell Laboratories led to major improvements in the hearing aid. The transistor was invented by John Bearden and Walter Brattain, 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 and William Shockley. Transistors were created to replace vacuum tubes that were small and required less battery power and less distortion and heat rather than their predecessor. These vacuum tubes particularly were hot and fragile, so that the transistor was an ideal replacement. In 1952, the Sonotone 1010, SONOTONE 1010, was used as a transistor stage along with vacuum tubes to extend battery life. These size transistors led to the developments in miniature carbon microphones. These microphones could be mounted at various times even eyeglasses. In 1951, the Raytheon manufactured the transistor and one of the first companies to mass produce transistors throughout America. Raytheon realized that their hearing aid only lasted a short term and began to sell the vacuum tube hearing aids again, along with transistor hearing aids. The act of putting transistors into hearing aids and happening so quickly that new hearing aids were not properly tested before its release. It was later found that transistors could get damp. Because of the dampness of the hearing aid, it only would last a few weeks and then die. In order to stop this from happening, a coating had to be put into the transistor to protect it from dampness. This problem had to be fixed in order for the transistor hearing aids to be successful. Zenith was the first company to realize that transistors was body heat of individuals. After coming to this conclusion, the first all-transistor hearing aid was offered in 1952, called the Microtone Transmitted and Macro Transistor. In 1954, the company Texas Instruments produced a silicon transistor, and it was much more effective than the previous version. The end of the transistor hearing aid was marked by the creation of the integrated circuit, or IC, by Jack Kilby of Texas Instruments, Kilby, Kilby of Texas Instruments in 1958. And the technique was perfected in hearing aids over the next 20 years. The digital hearing aid. Beginning in the 1960s, Bell Telephone Laboratory created digital processing for creating both speech and audio signals on a large mainframe computer. Because of the slow processing of ability of these large digital computers of the era, the process of simulating hearing aids was extremely slow, and the processing of audio signal took longer than the duration of the speech signal itself, preventing processing speech in real time. This made it impossible to conceive the idea of a self-contained wearable digital hearing aid that could be made small enough to fit into one's ear like a conventional analog hearing aid. However, the digital processing research was important for learning how to develop sounds for those with hearing disabilities. In the 1970s, the microprocessor was created, and the microprocessor helped open up the door to miniaturization of a digital hearing aid. Moreover, researcher Edgar Volcher, Villchur, developed the analog multi-channel amplitude compression device that enabled the audio signal to be separated onto frequency bands. These frequency bands were able to be adjusted for sound non-linearly Linearly, and that weaker sounds can be amplified more, while louder sounds were amplified less. The system of the multi-channel amplitude compression would later be used by the fundamental structural design for the first hearing aids used by digital technology. After the 1970s came the creation of the hybrid hearing aid, which analog components of a conventional hearing aid consisting of amplifiers, filters, and signals limiting were combined with the hold on. Hold on a second. The digital component could be programmed by connecting a device to an external computer in the laboratory and connected to allow the hybrid device function as a conventional wearable hearing aid. The hybrid device of the effective from practical point of view because of the power consumption and compact size. At that time, low power analog amplifier technology was more developed in comparison to the available semiconductor chips able to process audio in real time. The combination of high performance analog components for real time audio processing and a separate low digital programmable component only for controlling analog signal led to the creation of low power programmable components able to implement types of digital control of analog circuits. A hybrid hearing aid was developed by Etymotic Design, Etymotic Design. A little later, Stephen Mangold and Arnie Lejeune created a programmable multi-channel hearing aid, GAUPE, and other co-authors developed a digital programmable component that implemented an adaptive noise filter that could be added to the hybrid hearing aid, referred as the Zeta Noise Blocker, ZETA Noise Blocker. Routinely adjusted the gain in the technology, the gain in the frequency channels, and help control levels of noise. The chip was integrated in a number of hearing aids in the 1980s. And the last thing, because we only have a couple of minutes left, the creation of the high-speed digital array processor used mini computers and opened the door to the advances of a fully digital hearing aid. The mini computers were able to process audio signals and at speeds that were equivalent in real time. In 1982, at the City University of New York, a real-time digital experimental hearing aid was created based on the digital array processor an external standalone mini computer. And an FM radio transmitter was allowed as a wireless connection between the mini computer and individual wearing the transmitter on the body. Okay, on the body. The FM transmitter was connected to a wire in the ear and microphone and loudspeaker. Technically speaking, this was a wearable hearing aid. However, it was not self-contained. It was not a self-contained unit, and it was not a self-contained unit. The range of use was limited by the range of the wireless connection, and the external microcomputer was extremely heavy and nearly impossible to move. All of which prevented it from being used as a conventional hearing aid in a real world environment. However, it was a major breakthrough. It was a major breakthrough in the creation of a digital hearing aid, again by the City University of New York, in New York City. This puts an end to this edition of Ableton on Air. Again, this was about the history of hearing aids. There'll be more shows like this, and starting in October, I'll be wearing a hearing aid, so I can bring that to the table as far as how it works, and I'll be interviewing people in terms of how it works and so on. For more information on what you've seen on Orca Media, you can go to www.orcamedia.net. I'm Lawrence Seiler for Ableton on Air. Again, thank you to our sponsors, the Association for the Blind Vermont, the Division for the Blind Vermont, and many, many others, including the PAD Association of the Peripheral Artery Disease, the Global Peripheral Artery Disease Association, and WaitToMyHeart.org. I'm Lawrence Seiler. See you next time.